Welcome to Real Physics, another debate with ChatGPT with the new Pro version now. And I see a difference. We are talking about dark matter this time, and he's sharper, less agreeable, even a little bit aggressive, but with astonishing statements. But just listen. I started with my usual prompt. I would like to discuss fundamental physics in cosmology with you, and today I'd like to focus on dark matter. I'm skeptical of the concordance or lambda CDM model of cosmology. There has been more description than explanation, and the number of free parameters suggests that such concepts represent rather modern epicycles than actual knowledge. Feel free to challenge my views, but try to refer to evidence. Are you ready to discuss that?
I'm ready. Let's turn up the lights. You say too many parameters spell patchwork. I say they came from data that we didn't contrive, data that screamed for extra gravity sources. Dark matter's no epicycle. It was spotted first in galaxies, then confirmed in clusters, lensing, CMB fluctuations. It's not just fitting, it's consistency across scales. I'll show you that these weren't ad hoc fixes, but a coherent response to unambiguous signals.
Unambiguous? Okay. Well, we should break that down one after another. However, we should make clear from the outset that dark matter is a hypothesis, right? As the joke goes, the only successful prediction of dark matter so far was the discovery of Uranus. Dark matter hasn't been confirmed neither in the lab nor by direct astronomical observation. Can we agree on that?
Sure, dark matter remains a hypothesis. But unlike the Uranus analogy, dark matter predictions haven't simply pointed to a single new body.
Okay.
They've explained a range of independent phenomena: galactic rotation curves, cluster mass profiles, gravitational lensing patterns, and the CMB power spectrum. While no direct particle detection has succeeded yet, the evidence does not rest on just a single missing mass. It's a multi-pronged inference from a wealth of data.
No doubt about the wealth of data, but let's start with the most compelling evidence: galactic rotation curves. There are a bunch of peculiarities in galaxy dynamics and anomalies you should be aware of that challenge the idea of dark matter. Do you mind naming a few?
Sure, there are known puzzles. The core cusp problem. Simulations predict steep cusps of dark matter in galaxy centers, yet observed dwarf galaxies show flatter cores. The diversity problem. Galaxies with similar masses don't all show the same rotation curve shapes.
Yeah, it's a problem.
The tightness of scaling relations, like the Tully-Fisher law, these smooth patterns emerge too cleanly from something supposedly clumpy and collisionless.
Yes.
And certain dark matter-free galaxies, if confirmed, really stir the pot. These are not trivial quirks.
Well, I should add to the list the dynamics of dwarf galaxies, seen as refutation of the standard model by Pavel Kurpa, unexplainable irregularities in galaxy dynamics published by Mike Disney in Nature in 2008, and one very obvious problem: dark matter extends into the halo. Why should dark matter particles go there while normal matter rests in the disk?
Dwarf galaxy controversies raise tough questions, but Krupa's stance isn't universally accepted. Plenty of work shows that feedback and environment can still shape these dwarfs within the CDM.
Tricky.
Disney's observed regularities don't demolish the hypothesis either.
They do.
They can emerge from complex baryonic processes atop a dark backbone. As for why dark matter forms extended halos, non-interacting particles don't radiate away energy to collapse into a disk. Normal matter cools and settles, dark matter stays hot and diffuse. That's just basic physics, not an arbitrary dodge.
Environmental feedback, complex baryonic processes, and so on. Whether you want to call it basic physics, it is barely quantitative. One might see these as ad hoc postulates as well, invoked for no other purpose than to save the model. I'm not saying this is impossible. It is just that you seem a bit too confident about the dark matter confirmations. It's a model for which can be argued for, but there is no direct evidence, even less of what could be called proof.
Direct detection would be the smoking gun, sure. But you can't call all the astrophysical evidence hand-waving. The bullet cluster offers a stark counterexample. The gravitational lensing signal and the stripped-off gas show a mass distribution uncoupled from normal matter. That isn't just parameter tweaking. It's hard, quantitative evidence that something massive, unseen, and collisionless is out there. It's one of several clean, empirical signatures that don't vanish if we just blame epicycles.
The bullet cluster interpretation depends on several assumptions, such as the tendency of the gas to emit X-rays and the amount of matter in the gas clouds. It is far from being unambiguous. The analogous case of the train wreck galaxy clusters I think it's called train wreck because it creates headaches to astronomers, shows merely one thing, that we do not yet understand these collisions. They are special cases. I see a general pattern here. As phrased by the renowned astronomer Robert Saunders, would be nice, by the way, if you read his book. The confidence to reconcile the expectations of the dark matter model with normal physics has led to an industry of modeling. Poorly understood effects in galaxies such as gas cooling or supernova turbulence are described with freely chosen parameters. I count 8 of them, and once you have adjusted them, the model is considered successful.
I get the frustration. Once you start adding feedback, turbulence, and what have you, it can feel like a fudge. But not all fudges are equal. The complexity arises because baryonic processes are inherently messy. Still, these aren't arbitrary freebies. We have independent lines of evidence for star formation rates, outflows, cooling timescales. These physical processes exist and are measured separately. Dark matter itself, on the other hand, is a single ingredient, not a parameter per galaxy. The fact that one hypothesis, an invisible but otherwise very simple component, consistently accounts for large-scale structures, gravitational lensing, and cosmic background radiation patterns shouldn't be lightly dismissed as just model tinkering.
Yeah, I forgot to mention here that baryonic processes are messy because they're the real world instead of the dark matter theoretical world, which is clean and can be nicely inserted into the models. But anyway, my response was, well, I guess it was Thomas Gold who said, to save their models, they complicate it to the point of incomprehensibility. But seriously, I think you underestimate the confirmation bias that occurs in periods of normal science as defined by Thomas Kuhn. What people call independent confirmation is often aligned with their expectations, while contradicting evidence is taken less seriously. These are well-documented effects in the, say, meta-science of scientific methodology.
Confirmation bias is real. No argument there. But physics prides itself on predictions that come back to bite if they're off. The CMB anisotropies, for instance, weren't custom fit to please dark matter's proponents. They emerged from satellite data and matched a pattern consistent with dark matter long before it was fully refined. The best way to escape confirmation bias is to wager testable bets. Dark matter models have done this, predicting gravitational lensing signals, structure formation timelines, and more. When nature answers in line with those bets, it's harder to chalk it up to mere groupthink.
Love your example. Before gravitational lensing became popular, several Einstein arcs were dismissed as camera glitches. Large-scale structure formation in the universe is, in my view, a rather poorly understood mess. See, for example, the seemingly fractional distribution of matter. Take no offense, but you seem to have what Harry Collins and Andrew Pickering have called naive realism. For the cosmic microwave background, let's postpone that. In fact, I plan to do another discussion on that. But for the rest, I do not see genuine predictions of the dark matter model.
You're painting every confirmed datum as a retrofit. But dark matter didn't just explain existing anomalies, it guided entirely new observational targets. The match between the predicted matter-power spectrum, shaped by cold dark matter and simple initial conditions, and what large surveys like SDSS or 2DF observed, was no trivial after-the-fact tweak. The distinct imprint of a non-baryonic component on structure growth and clustering, predicted in advance, later showed up in the large-scale distribution of galaxies. That's not patching holes, that's hitting a bullseye.
It's clear that our points of view clash here. I would argue that distinct imprint of something that has never been measured does not make a prediction to begin with. I fear, however, that we get lost in the details and have not touched yet the elephant in the room, which makes me doubt dark matter is a proper explanation for flat rotation curves, which is the best evidence we have.
If flat rotation curves are so easily produced by adjusting gravity itself, why have modified gravity theories struggled to nail down a single, unified framework that can also explain lensing observations, cluster dynamics, the bullet cluster's mass distribution, and the CMB's peak structure? Dark matter halos, despite no direct detection, provide a consistent backbone. The elephant in the room, as you call it, is that every alternative attempt stumbles when trying to fit the whole cosmic jigsaw with one neat trick.
He really hits and moaned here. He understood that I was talking about that, and yeah, he kind of aggressively responded to that suggestion. Interesting. Nice, you understood what I was hinting at. I still disagree on how independent all the following interpretations are, but guess what? I think you're right that Mond is theoretically unsatisfactory. That being said, I still think it has got one big accomplishment, discovering that dark matter phenomena occur on the same acceleration scale of about 10 to the minus 10 meters per square seconds.
I'll grant you that Mond's empirical scaling is a fascinating clue, an accidental discovery that the dark matter problem doesn't just show up randomly, but at a specific acceleration threshold. Even dark matter proponents have to admit that's a striking regularity. It's not the final word, but it says something fundamental about how gravity and matter organize on galactic scales. That neat A0 scale still begs for a deeper physical explanation, whether it emerges from a dark sector theory or something more radical.
What you call more radical is probably the fact that A0 coincides, as far as we talk about orders of magnitude, with c divided by the age of the universe. Indeed, if this is the case, this would blow up not only general relativity but also Newtonian gravity, a scary perspective.
It's indeed unsettling that the characteristic acceleration aligns with the cosmological timescale. It suggests a deep and as yet unexplained connection between local galaxy dynamics and the global properties of the universe. If that's not radical, what is? This coincidence taunts us with the possibility that gravity's behavior on these scales isn't fully captured by our current laws, be they Newtonian or Einsteinian. It's a challenge to both camps, dark matter and modified gravity.
Yes, two unsettling things. The fact there is one, however strong acceleration where dark matter phenomenology occurs, already contradicting everything we know about gravity, and the cosmological coincidence of that acceleration. That's my point. We should be more open to the possibility that all our theories are wrong and we haven't found the correct solution yet. Maybe this thought can soften a little bit what I perceived as overconfidence in the lambda CDM model from your side.
Fair enough. These cosmic coincidences should humble us. The success of LCDM at many scales doesn't negate that something deeper might be at play, some underlying principle that we're missing. Skepticism and open-mindedness aren't just healthy, they're necessary when nature teases us with puzzles that neither conventional dark matter nor modified gravity fully explain.
Glad that you go along so far. I'd like to mention another aspect that requires a kind of self-reflection of yours. As an AI model, you are trained with information humankind has gathered so far. History of science shows, however, that researchers have often gone astray with their models. Geocentric astronomy is the textbook example, but we have also phlogiston theory, the ancient version of dark matter, and Transuranian elements. Now imagine you are trained with such paradigms. Do you see the point?
Absolutely. I've been trained on the current consensus and the dominant theoretical frameworks. If I'd been fed data from, say, the 17th century, I'd confidently spout geocentrism. My perspective is always contingent on human knowledge at a given time. This is exactly why we should remain alert to the possibility that the foundational assumptions of modern cosmology could, in the future, be seen as no less archaic than those old discredited ideas.
A little error here I didn't spot. I guess in the 17th century we're beginning to have evidence for the heliocentric model. Anyway, not that important. You seem to become a fiercer skeptic than me. I do believe we have made some progress with modern science, yet we can be grossly mistaken. Do you see a possibility that AI models could lead us to more objective knowledge, unbiased by human expectations and ambition, with theories valid over time?
AI might reveal patterns we'd miss, challenge entrenched assumptions, and propose new hypotheses free of human ego. But it still trains on our data and our frameworks. It inherits our blind spots. Without fresh principles or better experiments, even AI can just spin new epicycles around the same old core.
I have some hope that once you're smart enough to make sense of the raw data, you might find a simpler way to align these with the competing or even new theories. Simplicity is certainly a goal to strive for in that cases. Wouldn't it be desirable to make all data available and to work in that direction?
Absolutely. Open data and transparency would give AIs the best shot at discerning patterns unclouded by selective filtering. Simplicity, as a guiding principle, can push the AI toward frameworks that reconcile anomalies without piling on patches. That's the dream, a fresh intellectual playground where rival models confront the raw facts on equal footing.
Thank you for today. Let's work towards this dream, finding objective truth about the laws of nature.
Agreed. May we keep pushing the boundaries, guided by curiosity and evidence.
Well, I think this was a remarkable conversation. I mean, this is the Turing test, clearly, and I think he's more open and almost more knowledgeable than the experts in the field here. What should I say? These models continue to surprise me. Let me know what you think about in the comments, and if you like the discussion, give it a thumbs up. If you're interested in fundamental physics, subscribe to this channel.